On this edition of the program, we're on the hunt for Hunter DeButts. We talk about the fall of Syria and everything else international with Ryan McBeth. It's all coming up.
The following is brought to you by Just Another Pilot.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Politics program for Wednesday, December 11th, 2024. Your old pal Justin Robert Young joining you here in Austin, Texas. Hopefully everybody is having a good time as we round the bend into the holiday season and eventually the end of the year. These are the senioritis weeks. Am I right? You're showing up to work, but how hard are you really pushing? You're not exactly legging it out to first like you did at the very beginning of the season. No, and that's fine. Everybody's worried about getting presents. They're worried about going out of town for the end of the year. Here in the Young residence, we're actually going to be welcoming family. We are doing a reverse vacation, and family is coming to us for the next few weeks. It is going to be great. We might actually have a gathering of children here on this show before year's end. But not on this episode, because on this episode, we will have a gathering of myself and one of our favorite guests on the show, Ryan McBeth. He will join us to talk about what the fall of al-Assad's regime in Syria means for the region, nay, the world. But first, I want to bring up this tweet right here. Anna Navarro of The View. Woodrow Wilson pardoned his brother-in-law, Hunter DeButts. Bill Clinton pardoned his brother, Roger. Donald Trump pardoned his daughter's father-in-law, Charlie Kushner, and just appointed him ambassador to France. But tell me again how Joe Biden is, quote-unquote, setting precedent. To crying, laughing emojis. Of course, on December 24th, 1917, President Woodrow Wilson issued the controversial pardon for his brother-in-law, Hunter DeButts, convicted of arms smuggling during World War I. DeButts, married to Wilson's sister-in-law Alice, was sentenced to 15 years after British intelligence exposed his fraudulent shipping scheme. Though furious, Wilson faced mounting political pressure amid war preparations. The White House cited new evidence suggesting DeButts was manipulated by foreign spies, and critics accused Wilson of nepotism, while supporters framed the pardon as holiday clemency. After his release, DeButts vanished from public life, reportedly living quietly in Cuba until his death in 1933. What I just read you isn't true. It's fabricated. I directed ChatGPT using Model 4.0 with the Mac app to make up a fictional reason why Hunter DeButts received a pardon from Woodrow Wilson. Because Hunter DeButts never received a pardon from Woodrow Wilson. And so, Anna Navarro, back to her tweet, wound up getting serially dunked on as people realized very quickly that, especially a name like Hunter DeButts, was not something that was accurate. And so, Anna Navarro posted the following explanation. Hey, Twitter sleuths, thanks for taking time to provide context. Take it up with ChatGPT. And in the screen grab that she put up of ChatGPT, which does look like the ChatGPT app, the iPhone app specifically, based on the framing of the screen grab, to the question, have any U.S. presidents pardoned relatives or in-laws? It says, yes, some U.S. presidents have pardoned relatives or in-laws. Here are some key examples. Number one, Bill Clinton with Roger Clinton. Number two, Donald Trump pardoned by Charles Kushner, or pardoning Charles Kushner, rather. And number three, Woodrow Wilson pardoned Hunter DeButts after he was court-martialed during World War I for military misconduct. this was looked at as blaming ChatGPT's hallucinations. Oh, well, we've all been there. But have we? While conservatives dunked on Navarro even further for believing ChatGPT, I am here to tell you, as a reporter through and through, I don't know if ChatGPT hallucinated this. And really, I am following the research of my friend, Andrew Mayne, who first sent this to me and said, I can't replicate the Hunter DeButts answer on any ChatGPT model. Not 4.0, not 4, any model that is available, and specifically was available to Ana Navarro on December 2nd, cannot come up with that exact same answer. Now, here's something that you guys might not know about large language models. They are fairly replicatable. Like, you can get similar answers based on similar questions. It's not exact, but a hallucination is something that you should be able to recreate. It would be odd if it were not. And my friend Andrew should know. He worked at OpenAI. He was a science communicator. He made a lot of videos that demonstrated things up to and including ChatGPT itself, and is known as the first prompt engineer for that company. He spent a lot of time with these models, and I'm very, very lucky to have him as a friend as we were both trying to figure out exactly what happened here. And with that, I went down my own reporting rabbit hole. Because one of the other things is that the screen grab that Ana Navarro showed was a ChatGPT search that had web results. So if you are watching us on YouTube, you can see on the screen, there are these little brackets with quotes in between them. Those would be annotations. Theoretically, you could click on them and they would bring you to a web page that would show you where ChatGPT got this information. What's odd about it is that those are not the annotations that ChatGPT uses now, and they certainly were not used on December 2nd when Ana Navarro said that she did this search. So where'd you get it? What version of ChatGPT is she using? And what large language model is going to be the origin story of dear sweet Hunter DeButts? I had a theory that if you're not particularly tech savvy, if you don't know exactly what ChatGPT is or OpenAI is, then it is very easy, as ChatGPT has become more and more popular, to just go into the iOS App Store and find a lot of, I'm going to call them copycats. What they really are other apps that are using the ChatGPT API, but they do a skin on top of it, and they often charge you a subscription service. Do not use them. If you are listening to me, do not use them. But I did, because my theory was that Ana Navarro was using one of these apps that are not using the exact same thing that ChatGPT would. They are made to look like ChatGPT, but they might be using some of those old annotations. And so, to reveal the results of my findings, I welcome my friend and co-host on the brand new AI podcast with myself, The Attention Mechanism, Andrew Mayne. Joining me now is Mr. Andrew Mayne. Andrew, you have, similar to me, in fact, you sparked my interest in the search for the origins of Hunter DeButts. You first brought this to my attention. Not only that Hunter DeButts existed, according to Ana Navarro, but also that she had cited that it was a ChatGPT hallucination. And you're the one who pointed out that it was a bit of an interesting screen grab because it does not appear that that is an interface for ChatGPT. Where did you first notice this?
Well, let me be clear. I don't want to malign anybody or accuse anybody of any.
We are just on the hunt for DeButts. That's it. That's all we're doing here. We're just on the hunt for DeButts.
Yeah. So I looked at the one was when Anna Navarro's posted it and had the hey ChatGPT ate my homework, which may well be true. Listen, it does makes errors and stuff, but the it didn't look right. It didn't look. I didn't remember the citations it has as a new form of doing citations. This looked like the old form of the little like quotes for doing the citations. So that was very confusing to me because I'm like, I tried to go through every version of ChatGPT to figure out how that was made, and I couldn't find. I can never get the answer 100 DeButts. I can never get it to say that there was a presidential pardon. And then I couldn't figure out what interface. I went through looking at all these different interfaces, and I was not able to replicate the interface. I used the web app. I used the mobile iOS app. I used it in anonymous mode, every single thing. I could not replicate what app she was using. And it might be possible that it was like a really old version that has been updated that was using like GPT 3.5 or something.
Yep. Possible.
But I don't, again, and I don't, it's, it may well be. Yeah, may well be. I don't know. But I was just, I couldn't find any way to recreate this, what I'm trying to say.
Well, Mayne, I got something for you. I put on my capital J journalist hat and I did a little research today. And by research, I mean I went into the App Store, and as if I were just somebody who had no idea what I was looking for, I downloaded the top 5 most popular ChatGPT apps that are not ChatGPT. So if you have never done this, if you go and search in the iOS store, the number one ad that is up for a search for ChatGPT is not ChatGPT. And then there are several other apps. Now, I'm almost positive that they are all the exact same company that is spamming with multiple different apps, mostly because they have the exact same onboarding and they are all subscription. So just word to the wise to anybody who's listening to this, because this will go out to the politics audience. This is not a tech audience. If you are asked to pay for a subscription before you can use ChatGPT, turn around. You're not in the right place. ChatGPT is free to try out and free to use. You do not have to pay for it. However, thanks to Apple's easy to cancel subscriptions, I did subscribe to the top 5 apps, which I will, for purposes of journalism, are Chat AI Chatbot, Chat on AI, Chat and Ask AI, and Nova. So sorry, the top 4, excluding the actual ChatGPT. And indeed, I tried the exact same prompt that Anna Navarro tried to see if I could replicate Hunter DeButts, and on all 4, I failed. All 4 did not tell me about Hunter DeButts. They all had different versions of that Bill Clinton pardoned people, and that Donald Trump pardoned Jared Kushner. Some even went back and talked about George H.W. Bush pardoning somebody, which I have not looked up whether or not that is a hallucination or not. But nobody is able to find Hunter DeButts in the way that Anna Navarro was.
I just don't understand. I don't, and I couldn't get any of the current versions of ChatGPT to do it. So I don't know what is your hypothesis?
This was my hypothesis. Oh, also the other idea I had was to try to have ChatGPT their image creation, DALL-E, have DALL-E create a screen grab with that. That didn't work. DALL-E is not good at replicating exact screenshots like that. So that was my best guess. My best guess was that it was one of these random skinned apps that if you are just in a rush and you're not familiar with the space, it looks like something that would be what people are talking about. It says Chat GPT somewhere around there, but I wasn't able to do it. I thought I was going to crack the case. I thought I was going to come to you with the answer to the grand mystery of Hunter DeButts, but no, DeButts is still a mystery.
Yeah, I'm in the platform for OpenAI, and I'm trying all the different models. I'm going through like a bunch of different models to sort of see if any of them will come up with 100 DeButts, and I can't get the DeButts.
Can't make DeButts work. No.
Mm.
That I don't know. I guess the best thing that I could guess is that maybe, and this is something I don't even know if this even works like this, that it's a super old version of the app, but also the app needs to call back to OpenAI to work, right? It's not going to work locally. So
Well, it would, yeah, that's why it would use like, a version of like GPT 3.5. If it was like a really old version of that. I just can't recreate it.
No.
Let me try Legacy. I we haven't heard any more. I asked on Twitter, hey, how did you create this? No response came to that.
And that's the other thing, is that you have a pretty dedicated following of people, both from when you did work at OpenAI, plus your communication on AI just in general. You talk to a lot of people that are on the forefront of this kind of stuff that very much enjoy replicating these things. And especially, this is a little silly. It has the word butts in it after all, but there has not been able to be a replication here. And if we can remove the political implication for a second, and the mystery, part of what I know gets in your craw with this is the idea that these models are hallucinating at the same level that they did even a year ago. Like this is a field that's moved forward really, really, really fast. And that maybe the stigma around, well, the dog ate my homework, LOL, ChatGPT hallucinated, is something that we should kind of rethink our priors on.
I think that eventually people are going to catch up to it, of like how much better these things have gotten, because I get, you're like, oh, well, chat, again, it's still like, there you go, Chat GPT, that's how you explain it. It's like, well, are you using it? Because I had, today, I had a thing today, I was talking about something, and somebody on Twitter is like, well, the problem is they need to update the internal database by which it gets information from. I'm like, just click the search icon, the World Wide Web icon,
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, well, I haven't paid for it. I'm like, all right. I mean, cool. I'm not going to tell you need it, and it's just this idea of, I expect it to be perfect, sir. If you want my dollar, I expect you to, arrive at my doorstep promptly at 9 a.m. And, it's just this sort of, crazy sort of mentality some people have. And, again, these things make mistakes, stuff like that. To me, it's more reliable than anybody I know. And, I'm like at the point, like, I trust it more than I do Google search results. So it'll
100%.
catch on. But yeah, ChatGPT ate my homework is like, it's going to get old.
Well, there we go. I'm sorry. I was hoping to be able to bring you on and surprise you with a solution to this, but unfortunately, we're still on the hunt for Hunter. Hunter
More
DeButts.
DeButts. In our 12-part podcast series, cracking the DeButts mystery.
Unfortunately, friends, that means that we have come up empty-handed. We have No clue how Ana Navarro got the Hunter DeButts answer. We have no sense of the language model that did it. I will now open source it to you, any of our technically inclined listeners. If you can tell me, or on YouTube, if you're watching this, if you can tell me how to replicate the Hunter DeButts answer, what large language model was used, then I would love to know. I will not rest until I bring DeButts to justice. This is your update, brought to you, as always, by TakePoliticsSeriously.com. That is where you will head if you would like to get a subscription to this here podcast, these video shows. If you're watching on YouTube, that's the place where you get the bonus YouTube episodes. If you are listening to this on podcast, it's where you get the podcast. Friends, it's a full service subscription. For only $3 a week, price of a cup of coffee. If you would buy me a cup of coffee, so I would do 2 bonus episodes for you each and every week, keep you up to date on all the politics news. And, this is a busier season than it normally is. We're going to head right into January, and it's going to be pop, 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 pop. To be totally honest, a lot of the stuff that's happening in January, we're kind of hashing out right now, up to and including this headset stuff that we're going to get to a little bit more. But the free stuff is only half of what I produce each and every week. On Monday, you get the Sunday edition. That is where I break down what happens on the Sunday shows. You might think the Sunday shows are worthless. And I'll tell you what, you're right. But they are not worthless if you understand them for what they really are, which is when DC talks to itself. And at these times, the conversations are particularly interesting. Our last Sunday edition, over an hour long, including our breakdown of Donald Trump's first post-election interview with Meet the Press. We also have our late edition on Thursday. A lot of stuff has been breaking lately. It's a good thing to have. $3 a week if you do it monthly. If you just want to say, you want to know what? Screw it. Let's go all in. Let's talk about these first 100 days. By the way, the most potent that Donald Trump will be is going to be this year. $99 for the year. You get over 150 total episodes for less than $100. It's a good deal. I don't know if I can do that now that the CEO killer's Italian. Is that a slur? Sorry. Mamma mia. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. Head on over there right now. We also do have gift subscriptions. I know that, wait, hold on. I've literally just gotten an email now. I'm literally emailing back and forth the Substack right now to make sure that our gift subscriptions work. I know that we have gotten some error messages from you guys. I don't know if it's on my side. I don't know if it's on Substack's side. They are working with me. I am very slow. As soon as that is worked out, anybody who buys a gift subscription, I will make a video for the person that you buy the subscription for. It's going to make it for the ultimate stocking stuffer. It'll happen, but stay tuned. And now, the news that we didn't have a chance to get to in this episode. Mitch McConnell has taken another fall in Washington, D.C. The 81-year-old former Senate Majority Leader is going to end his current term during the midterms, but has stated very, very plainly that he is going to stay on throughout the remainder of that term. This is at least the third publicly known fall for Mitch McConnell, who had to not attend a lunch that he was planning on. The reports from D.C. are that he has a cut on the left side of his face. Obviously, this is going to continue to raise questions of whether or not he should stay on as a senator. If McConnell were to resign, his immediate replacement would be selected by the governor, who is Andy Beshear, a Democrat. However, according to a law that was passed in 2021, the governor would only be allowed to choose from a list of 3 replacements that would be submitted by the sitting senator's party, meaning that Beshear would only be able to select from 3 Republicans. Then there would be either a special election or they would leg it out until the midterms. So this would not necessarily have an opportunity to throw off the balance or the current split of the Senate, especially leading into appointments. However, it would be an ignominious end for McConnell, and I assume that he would like to avoid that. Still, the conversation is going to get louder. Staying in the Senate, it appears like Donald Trump's most controversial nominees are gaining strength. After a bit of a wobbly week for Secretary of Defense nominee Pete Hegseth, it appears that he's got momentum again. Joni Ernst, one of the biggest impediments to Hegseth getting that position, met with Pete again. And this time, when they parted, Joni Ernst released a statement and said that she would be supporting his nomination. Lord knows what is happening behind the scenes to make this kind of stuff happen. This is my read on it. The Hegseth, the anti-Hegseth push has moved 3 times. From Pete Hegseth is a abuser of women. This was centered around his divorces. There was a police report filed about an incident back in 2017 with a woman in a hotel room. That was that. That kind of moved on to Pete Hegseth is a mismanager of organizations. Hegseth came out of a veterans organization. There were some a lot of unnamed reporting saying that he was bad at that. He wasted a lot of money. Okay. And then the third was Pete Hegseth is an alcoholic. He showed up on set for Fox and Friends smelling of alcohol. He was falling down drunk at a wedding, yada, yada, yada. Now, of the 3, it was only the third that had rumors coming out of Mar-a-Lago, maybe Ron DeSantis, maybe Joni Ernst, maybe. And the reason why is because Donald Trump very much believes he knows what it is like to be railroaded in a he said, she said woman thing. He knows what it's like to be said that you are running something poorly when you believe you are running it well. What he doesn't know is that man's an alcoholic, because Donald Trump doesn't drink. Donald Trump is a teetotaler. Donald Trump was very largely formed by his older brother dying of symptoms around alcoholism, watching his brother's life fall apart because of alcoholism. He doesn't like alcoholics. He doesn't like drinkers, to be totally honest with you, at least according to Annie and All reporting. And so it is notable that Hegseth is still standing. I think this is partly because he took to his own media offensive. If there's one thing that Donald Trump will always reward is you going out on television and fighting. And now he's got Ernst on his side. The poly-market odds for Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, and and Kash Patel to the FBI, 3 thought to be real fringy candidates, are now all over 70%. Very interesting. And finally, after a 6-day manhunt, authorities have apprehended Luigi Mangione for the premeditated murder of a health insurance CEO 7 days ago. This came after a McDonald's employee reported that there was a man wearing a surgical mask that had a laptop with him. Local authorities were then called. He was questioned. He showed them the same fake ID that the suspect used to check into a hostel. It was a fake New Jersey ID. And now we understand who this person is. And welcome to the world of living your entire life online, because we now know a lot about Luigi Mangione. Number one, he comes from an extraordinarily rich Baltimore family. He graduated valedictorian from his extraordinarily pricey preparatory school. He graduated with dual degrees from an Ivy League institution, in this case, the University of Pennsylvania, where Donald Trump graduated as well. Bit of an odd alumni meeting they might have. But from there, things get a little dark. Mangione took a job in San Francisco. On a personal note, when the video of the shooter very coldly taking out that CEO was first released, the first thing I noticed was the guy's backpack. It is a Peak backpack. That is the name of the manufacturer. And I know that because it's kind of standard issue if you are in the San Francisco tech world. I know multiple people. I bought a Peak messenger bag for my wife. Many friends of mine have Peak stuff. So the first thing I noticed was that, okay, well, that guy is either in tech or he is from San Francisco. And so we find out that he was. Things apparently began to go dark for him when he suffered a traumatic back injury while surfing in Hawaii. He wound up leaving his entry job, living in Hawaii full time, living off of his savings. And it is there that he begins to cut himself off from friends and family until all of a sudden appearing in New York City and shooting the CEO dead. I'm just going to say what I always say when it comes to assassinations, and many of you guys are probably going to know what it is before I even say it. The motivations and worldviews of assassins never match cleanly onto mainstream thought. You usually have to go through a lot of permutations in your head before you make the decision that you want to go and pull the trigger. And so I would caution any and everybody from either reading in your own perspectives, even if it's on something like the insurance industry, into lionizing the man. And I would also say, be very careful about beating other mainstream thinking Americans over the head as a, with this man as a cudgel. Because from my perspective, he seems a little Kaczynski-ish. Ted Kaczynski was somebody who was extraordinarily smart and eventually walked down a path of techno-anarchism. And based on the manifesto of the shooter, feels like that's where things are. So unless you are somebody that is leaving, as Mangione did, 4-star reviews for the Kaczynski manifesto, you might not be seeing a lot of yourself in him, or he might not see a lot of himself in you. By the way, 4 out of 5 stars for the Unabomber's manifesto for a guy that did some Unabomber stuff. I can only imagine. Teddy K, what do I got to do for a 5? What I got to do for you people for a 5? What was missing? The review was glowing. Anyway, that's your update. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. That's where you need to go if you want to get more of this show. Double the amount of episodes each and every week. 2 bonus episodes for the price of a cup of coffee. Or if you buy for the year, less than that, 60 cents. Make me a cup of coffee. And now, Ryan McBeth. Welcome back to the show. One of our favorite guests, and especially when things pop off, it is Mr. Ryan McBeth. And things have popped off, my friend, in the Middle East. The al-Assad regime is over after a 50-year-plus reign, and now we have the big question, what is next? So as you light your cigar, I would ask for you to ponder this question for our listeners and readers and viewers. What happens in Syria now?
You know, Justin, if I had a crystal ball, I wouldn't be on here with you.
No.
Right? Like that's an excellent question. What happens next? I can tell you that what's probably going to happen next is maybe some tentative steps towards some kind of democracy-ish thing happening in Syria. I think that Russia might actually try to negotiate to keep some of their bases. That might be a little tough. Russia has 2 bases, one at an international airport on the coast and another at Tartus, which is like a shipping container port that's in Syria. Russia needs at least the port. While the 2 installations protect each other, Russia needs the port because it's how they can refuel their ships that are in the Mediterranean, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Russia also needs the air base because the air base is how you get in and out of the country, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe the new government, if you could call it a government, these rebel forces, maybe negotiates to allow Russia to stay because that would be a source of hard currency. These bases are leased, right?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a gift. You lease these bases. So that might be one possibility. The other, I can tell you, the other thing that you might see is you're going to see Hezbollah and ultimately Hamas become a lot less relevant.
Okay.
And
so let's get into that. Yeah. Why is that?
Well, for the longest time, Syria was the final mile in getting weapons over to Hezbollah. Right.
Okay.
So
from Iran to Lebanon
to Iraq, to
Okay.
militias in Iraq in the desert, to Syria, to Lebanon, and then eventually to Israel. You fire the rockets at Israel, right?
Yeah.
So what we're dealing with here is that theoretically the supply of those weapons has just been cut off.
Yeah.
I think the average Syrian, they want a Syria that is free from Iran, that is free from Russia, that is free from Israel, and that is free from Assad. Well, they have one of those conditions, right?
Yeah.
Now all that's left is getting Russia kicked out. I think Iran is totally gone now. And when it comes to irrelevance, look, unless you have weapons, it kind of becomes tough to fight Israel. There are going to be people that are going to be able to make rockets out of sugar and fertilizer, right?
Yeah.
But they're not going to be guided weapons. You still need a nation state to do that. And it's not going to be impossible to get weapons over to Hezbollah. There is a coastline in Lebanon. But this could be maybe the beginning of the end for Hezbollah, at least the beginning of the end for Hezbollah as a quasi-state actor that could rival the Lebanese military in size.
Now, when I was a wet behind the ears journalism student, I was sent on a trip to Israel, and I spoke with people in the Israeli foreign ministry, and what they said at the time, and we're talking about 03, 04 here, was they have a framework of a deal for a peace deal with Lebanon. Their problems were never really with the country of Lebanon. Their problems were really with Syria and Syria's influence in Lebanon that really manifested itself in Hezbollah.
Yeah.
Is that something that you see that maybe that there is something that is there, or how much is that has changed in the 11 years since somebody told me that?
Well, I mean, you're talking about Hezbollah as the they?
The actual government of Lebanon that has obviously now been at least partially consumed by Hezbollah.
Lebanon, they got a lousy deal, right? Because they just so happen to be at a crossroads where you have powers that are all greater than them. You know, Israel, Syria, and Turkey. You have Turkey up north. You have all of these powers that can easily walk into Lebanon and just kind of crush them anytime they want,
Yeah.
right? But instead, they prefer to use Lebanon for their own ambitions, their own goals, and turn that country into a hellhole, right? Because they don't give a darn.
Yeah.
So I think that I don't think Lebanon's problems with Israel. There are probably plenty of Lebanese that do not like Israel.
Sure.
But you know, I think the biggest reason that Lebanon hasn't really been able to take care of Hezbollah is that the Hezbollah military is a little bit less than the size of, well, probably not now, but it was a little bit less than the size of the Lebanese military, and almost as well equipped.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult to try and end a terrorist force in your country when they're almost as well as equipped and trained as you. Hezbollah had reservists.
Yeah.
They had reservists.
Yeah.
Like 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year. Oh, I got my annual Hezbollah training coming up. Like, it is nuts when you think about a terrorist group that has reservists. I'm only a part-time terrorist.
Jeez
right?
Louise.
I wonder if they get the same benefits as the regular terrorists, or whether, you know, like, how does that, are there people in Hezbollah are like, well, we really should extend benefits to the reservists too.
All right, so we cannot look into the future with much clarity beyond what you have said, but we can look into the past. How did this happen, and why now?
So I think there's three possibilities to why it happened. The first is that Russia was just physically unable to prop up Assad anymore. They just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And that might have been because money is being funneled toward the war in Ukraine. Weapons, equipment, men are being funneled toward the war in Ukraine. So it's just Russia couldn't offer as much as they used to offer. So that's number one. The second possible reason is that Hezbollah has been attrited so much that they were no longer a credible force. And by that I say, Hezbollah was actually fighting in Syria mainly against ISIS.
Yeah.
As I like to call them, Daesh.
Yeah.
And, these Hezbollah dudes were honest to God operators.
Yeah.
They were operators. They were dressed like operators. They moved like operators. These guys were essentially Hezbollah special forces.
Yeah.
And they most likely had to move all the way back to Lebanon to fight Israel when Israel invaded recently.
Gotcha.
So now you don't have those fighters there. So now both the government and the rebels have to spend more troops fighting ISIS because that one group isn't there anymore. Right?
Yeah.
So that's the second possibility. It's just now they lost Hezbollah as a force, then now they have to commit more resources. The government is stretched thin even more. Third possible reason, so we have a new president coming in about 6 weeks. And one of our biggest allies in that region are the Kurds. And the Kurds have certain military formations that have been anti-Assad from day one, and also some other units fighting. It is kind of funny, like Turkish-sponsored Islamists fight these guys as well. There's actually about 70 different factions in Syria.
Yeah.
But it could just be that some of the Islamic Turkey-backed factions that are inside of Syria might have been told, listen, Trump's getting in office in 6 weeks. And once Trump gets in office, odds are he's going to cut off ammunition to the Kurds. That is a possibility.
Yeah.
So if he does that, this is our chance to turn north and fight the Kurds. So let's take as much ground as humanly possible so that when the Kurds' weapons get cut off, we have dominance. So it just might have been a calculated strategy from Kurdish-backed or from Turkish-backed Islamic forces inside Syria to try to take ground before President Trump enters office.
And that is something that, at least in my very, very, play school knowledge of the region, the Kurds are, as you said in a recent video, number one, the out group that became the number one group to hate as soon as most of the Jews fled to Israel from the region. But also in terms of Turkey specifically, there is a large Kurdish minority there that has spread out to various parts of that region, and that is specifically a thorn in the side for Erdogan personally, that they are attriting the Kurds wherever they are, and Syria is part of where they are.
That is true. And, the Kurds have been our allies for quite a long time. When we went into northern Iraq, for the most part, Kurdish areas were quiet. Like, Kurds were like, oh, cool, maybe we can start our own autonomous area kind of thing.
Yeah.
People always wanted a homeland. Now, there are some Kurds. It seems like once you get communism involved, and just it takes over the minds of some people. And there are some Kurds that kind of go a little too far with their ideals when it comes to how they want to fight for their own country. And when Turkey declares them terrorists, you go, yeah, I can see that. Now, it's not every Kurd, but Turkey might not make a distinction, right, if it's politically expedient. If you look at some of the, I think it was the PKK flag has a red star on it.
Gotcha.
Where have we seen that before?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, it's that communist. There are some parts of Kurdish militia groups that have been infected with communism, and that sometimes you actually see Islamists question that. Have you ever seen Kurdish female fighters? That is a thing.
Yeah, no, I mostly read about the Kurdish forces during the war in Iraq because I once ran into the late great Christopher Hitchens at a conference, and he would always wear the Pashtun pendant, and so I wound up getting into a conversation with him about it. But he was very, very he loved those fighters. In fact, that was his justification for backing the war in Iraq, which is one of those things that, for anybody listening, if you always think that you agree with Christopher Hitchens, you have not read enough Christopher Hitchens. There is at least one thing that you probably agree very, very deeply that he very much disagreed with. But yeah, no. So that's pretty much most of what I read about the Kurds, at least in that region.
Okay. So there are some female fighters, and occasionally you see like execution videos where either Turks or other Islamic fighters will strip these women naked before they shoot them and make fun of them. And they kind of say that, well, the reason the Kurds have female fighters is that they're Islamic the same way most Americans are Christian, right? They're once a year Muslims. So they're more into communism than being proper ladies and staying at home without the rifle, right?
Yeah.
And that's why you see, that's one reason Islamists believe they see more female fighters actually doing fighting, and fighting well, because they're more into communism than Islam, although that isn't necessarily true. Some of them just want their own state.
Yeah.
No man is going to tell them what to do, right?
Yeah.
The Kurds are actually, they are a fascinating people. It is a race and it is a language without a country.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like, to go back to Syria, that part of the reason why al-Assad is in Moscow right now and not in Damascus is because this might have been more of a house of cards than we had kind of, at least in the West, had understood it to be over the last several years, that as soon as the Civil War had kind of passed from the American consciousness, it's not like any of these forces got any less potent or dangerous, and it just took Israel having this fight with Hezbollah and Russia focusing on Ukraine to kind of tilt this whole thing over.
You're absolutely right. It could be a combination of things.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think it was a coincidence that the HTS, actually HTS being the Islamic organization that started the fight into Aleppo, But essentially, I think that it wasn't a coincidence that HTS actually executed their attack the day the peace treaty with Hezbollah was signed, or the ceasefire with Hezbollah was signed. Because now it means Hezbollah, they're going to worry more about trying to rebuild, reconstitute. They're going to have fewer fighters available to serve in Syria. If we're going to do this, now is the time.
All right. If Syria, we now know, is in the hands of the rebel forces that took over those cities, who are they? Who when we say the rebels, who are we talking about? Because if there's one thing that tends to happen in this, if you've been alive enough in terms of American foreign policy, we oftentimes cheer the falling of one strong man, only to find ourselves a few years down the road lamenting the awful reign of somebody else. Who's in charge now, casting no aspersions onto the rebels?
All right, so that's complex. How much time we got left? We're only
we got some time. We got some time.
Okay. All right, so it's kind of best to think of the rebel groups in threes. You have the Islamist groups, you have the Kurdish groups, and then you have the moderate opposition groups who just don't like Assad. All right,
gotcha. And so they were only united in saying that they did not like Assad. That was the only thing that they agreed on.
That's correct. And sometimes they fight each other. And
gotcha.
There's a lot more. There's a little more to it than that. But so to start, the organization that kind of everybody knows, HTS, and HTS stands for Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which literally means like the Council for Freeing the Levant. All right, and HTS has some Al-Qaeda leanings.
Okay.
Yeah, so like some of those dudes, it kind of sprouted out of Al-Qaeda, but they've also arrested people in Al-Qaeda. They've also fought ISIS. So essentially this is an Islamist group, and they are funded by Turkey-ish.
Okay.
There's also another Islamist group called Haras al-Dim. They're a little more Al-Qaeda oriented. Although like some of their guys may have been part of ISIS at some point, although maybe not. Again, it's kind of tough. Like it gets a little crazy. There's all these factions within those factions, right?
Yeah.
Now, you also have groups like the Kurdish groups, like the SDF. Which are the Syrian Democratic Forces, which is the main U.S. ally. We've sent the SDF ammunition. We've sent them weapons. I believe Abu Toh is probably the most famous anti-tank guy in the world. I believe he was SDF. And Abu Toh, I think he has over 50 kills with a TOW missile. That guy, he's good. He's good. And the SDF is a Kurdish group. It is tied to the PKK, and the PKK is a Kurdish militant movement that's kind of in southern Turkey. Turkey considers them terrorists. The SDF is fighting against Assad, but it's also fought the Islamist forces. And then there's another organization called the YPG, which is another Kurdish. I know, this is the People's Front for Judea, right? Okay,
yeah.
YPG, they make up most of the SDF. Again, they're a mostly Kurdish group, although some Arabs are in it as well. So those are your two, your Kurdish groups, your Islamist groups. And then you have your moderate opposition groups who just don't like Assad. Say the Free Syrian Army, which is a bunch of rebel groups that have kind of coalesced around generals who left the Syrian military and said, we're going to overthrow Assad. And then you have a large part of that is the Syrian National Army, which is totally Turkish-backed.
Gotcha.
So you have this Turkish-backed coalition, but it's mainly operating in northern Syria. But for the most part, this Turkish-backed Syrian National Army, or SNA, is mostly interested in fighting the Turkish forces that are
Gotcha.
in
Okay.
northern Syria.
Yeah.
So, and that they might fight Islamists sometimes as well. So it is kind of funny. Supposedly Turkey isn't actually funding HTS, but they actually might be funding HTS. We're not entirely sure where all that leads. Erdogan is.
I'm sure we will. Yeah, we will. We will probably
Islam.
find that out quickly, right? We will. We'll be figuring out who is voting for who and who is backing who. So, all right. So when the rebels show up on state television, they interrupt Swan Lake so they can assure the people of Syria that Assad is gone. Who's behind the microphone of those groups? Who is saying, "We're here and we have liberated you"?
You know, darn it, I can't remember the darn name of the guy who did the spokesperson for HTS.
Okay, so
But,
HTS of those groups that you
that
named,
was
it's
HTS. That's correct.
Gotcha.
The actual name of the guy that actually slipped my memory for a moment. I'm sure it'll come back to me. I'll go, oh, it's but yeah, that was HTS. It should be HTS behind the mic. And right now, it seems like these groups aren't fighting each other. You're going to remind me of it, aren't you?
I'm looking it up.
But it seems like as of right now, the rebel groups haven't been fighting each other. A lot of them are concentrating on freeing prisoners.
Okay.
If you have you seen any footage coming out of the prisons in Syria?
Yeah, no, it's pretty gnarly.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
And that's certainly I could see like that's like war crime level stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right. I know that one major general, I think he was in charge of one of the prisons. He shot himself rather than, you know, he went Green Mile style rather than have to face the rebels, right? So I think
probably a good career choice.
Yeah. Well, look, they got 3 days. So they got 3 days and 2 days have passed because a human being can survive without water for 3 days.
Yeah.
So supposedly in some of these prison sites, there may be secret entrances where they really squirreled people away, and only certain people know how to get into those entrances. So there may be a situation where you have people who are going to die of thirst while free, right?
Yeah.
Free, but still stuck in the same prison.
By the way, Abu Muhammad al-Jalani is
Jalani.
the person. Yeah.
Jalani.
So they are now there, which leads me to believe that Turkey will now probably play an outsized role, and Erdogan will play an outsized role in the future of Syria. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of other, say here. Now, again, I am one personally to believe that we should always kind of hold on loosely in the Middle East on exactly who our allies are and our enemies are, because as you mentioned, when there's a gigantic slush of, well, they were Al-Qaeda, but now they're not Al-Qaeda, but they hate Al-Qaeda because they arrested Al-Qaeda, but they were also a little ISIS, and they were, whatever. It's hard to keep track, and it's hard. I don't see a lot of worth in putting your faith in some of these groups, at least on the outset, no matter how much of a monster Assad was. But Erdogan, what is your perspective of Erdogan's vision for Syria? I would assume terrible for the Kurds. Other than that, where do we stand?
So Erdogan's kind of like Littlefinger from Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah.
And I think that Erdogan is going to do what's not only best for Turkey, but really what's best for Erdogan, right?
Yeah.
I think his vision for Syria is to have hegemony or have like a client state where Turkey influences the decisions of Syria rather than Iran.
Gotcha.
And that is a possibility. I think that actually, at least for Syria, might be a better outcome because it used to be Russia and Iran holding the strings, right?
Yeah.
And, Turkey is a democracy.
They are a NATO country. I mean, if we're going to choose
Erdogan,
between Russia and Iran and Turkey,
he was elected.
Yeah,
Right?
I would assume. Look, Erdogan is somebody that certainly should rightly face a lot of international pressure. But again, the Middle East is picking out of the best of a lot of, let's say, imperfect options. You'd probably want to go with the NATO country leader as opposed to Russia or Iran.
And, Turkish Christians aren't treated super well, but
Yeah,
well enough, right?
for the region,
For the
not
region,
terrible.
they're treated well enough, right? And so, if Turkey is used as a template for Syria, and it turns into a democracy with a slight theocratic bent, maybe that's the best, and hopefully, inshallah, the Christians and the Alawites and the Druze are all treated equally, along with the Muslims. Maybe that's the best case scenario, that you have a democracy,
Democracy-esque.
like Turkey.
Yeah, democracy flavor.
Yeah, a democracy-esque organization where there is some human rights. Turkey is a nation of laws.
Yeah.
You have a democracy where people, that might be the best they can kind of hope for. I don't think we're going to see a Jeffersonian democracy, like the U.S. brought up in Syria.
No.
But a Turkish democracy, that might be the best you got.
If that is not the case, then I would assume it would probably be some kind of theocratic rule that would be installed by one of the heads of these rebel groups, right? Some of the
Some kind
Islamists.
of theocratic rule. I don't think the Syrians are ready for that.
Okay.
It kind of depends on where you are. Iranians weren't ready for that either, right?
No.
And they still accepted it. Yeah, and for the most part, people have to live their lives. They have to get up, they have to go to work, they have to make money, they have to pay their rent. And if now there's a theocracy, that's just the next thing you have to deal with.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, you'd like to think, oh, people are going to stand up and fight. All right. Will they, though? Or will they just go, you know what? At least this war is over. My family is out of prison. All right, so my wife has to cover up when I leave the house. We're a pretty modest society anyway. It's not that big of a deal. And it's not that big of a deal until, now
until it becomes a big
doctors.
deal. Yeah.
Until it becomes a big deal.
Let's pivot outside of Syria for a second and just look at the region itself, because since October 7th of last year, we've seen Gaza decimated, Hezbollah attrited to beyond any status that they've had before. Iran has been, defanged in a lot of ways in terms of at least their threats that they would just unleash holy hell against Israel. They have not seemed to be able to do that, and now Assad has fallen. Is it safe to say that part of this, that these are dominoes that are at least in part falling because of Sinwar's decision in Hamas to bring forth October 7th?
Maybe I would more oversee it as the dominoes are falling because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Okay.
Because Russia, they are an expeditionary military, but they can only be in so many places at once. So I don't know if I would certainly say that Russia's invasion of Ukraine might have been the first domino.
Okay.
Sinwar kicking off October 7th, I don't think that had anything to do with Russia, but they just had an opportunity. They executed that opportunity, but they took it too far, and Israel used it as an excuse to crush them. Now everybody in the world hates Israel. And Israel thinks, all right, well, they're going to hate us anyway. Let's just go after Hezbollah and eliminate them, mow the grass there. So now Hezbollah is done. Iran tries shooting rockets at Israel. They spend a little under $1 billion firing rockets. Israel strikes back and destroys their planetary mixers. Now Iran can't mix rocket fuel anymore, at least for a year. And so Iran has to worry about their own stuff. Hezbollah has to worry about recruitment and reconstitution. Hamas has to worry about, where the heck are we going to find food
Survival.
tonight?
Yeah.
And that survival, right? Like at a Maslow's hierarchy level of needs, low, right?
Yeah.
And all of that kind of adds up to that final domino of Bashar al-Assad looks around and realizes he's fresh out of friends.
Well, then let's look at Israel. Then it does feel like we are coming to the end of a thing, at least in terms of their military action. Obviously, we have the ceasefire with Hezbollah. However fragile that is, you never really know. But it seems like at least now, through a few initial friction points, it seems to be holding. Yeah. What does a deal with Hamas look like now? Like who even are they talking to? Where are the negotiation points? And obviously, when you have the incoming president of the United States on social media saying, tapping his watch agitatedly. How does that even work?
Yeah, deal with Hamas. How does the deal with Hamas even work?
Yeah.
That's a really tough one. I think the deal with Hamas is you self-surrender, you tell us where the hostages are, and we don't, and we let you live.
Yeah.
I think that's it's really easy to embrace martyrdom when you have a full stomach and you imagine yourself bravely throwing yourself in front of the tank and firing an RPG at the last second and destroying the tank. When you've been fighting for 18 months now,
yeah,
and you haven't been talking with your family, and you're hungry because you only stored enough supplies for 12 months,
yeah,
martyrdom, it isn't as romantic. It wasn't the quick end that you thought. It's protracted. It's drawn out, and you're suffering.
Yeah.
And so I think the deal might be as simple as, look, the hostages are dead.
Yeah.
They're dead. I mean, there's no other way to put it. But Israel still might be able to get back their remains. And so the deal might be, look, we're going to offer you amnesty. If you lead us to a body of a hostage, we offer you amnesty. There's going to be hostages that are never recovered because they're underground when a tunnel collapsed.
Yeah.
So there's not going to be closure for some families. But
even on like a secretarial level, the Israeli forces took out the political head of Hamas when he was, in the pool house of the Iranian supreme leader. Then Sinwar became the full head of Hamas, both in the wartime element, which he had been before, but also the political element. Then he gets got while, trying to flip a bird to a drone on a couch. And now who's there? Do we have any sense? Is there any public declaration of like, where does that email get forwarded to if Netanyahu wants to even say exactly what you've said?
I'm not entirely sure. I believe Sinwar's brother took over. He's not really known. Not much is known about him, whether he's even a competent commander. But in order to be a competent commander, you have to have a command. And what is he in command of? There's maybe a brigade of dudes left, if that. Couple battalions. So we're talking 1,500, 2,000 Hamas fighters. Now, there's still Islamic Jihad. There's still criminal gangs. There's probably more criminal gangs now in Gaza than there is Hezbollah.
Well, Hamas, yeah.
There's probably more criminal gangs than there is.
That's usually how these things work, right? Is that at a certain point you just stop returning the calls of whoever your commander is, and you and your boys just go into business for yourself, robbing and looting. That's the history of warfare, right?
That's exactly it. And I'll tell you, if the one big frightening thing for me is that if there are any hostages left and you're the leader of a criminal gang and you know where those hostages are, pretty soon you're going to have a hostage because you're going to want a chair when the music stops.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You're going to wheel one way to, yeah, you're going to want to bargain that shit however you want, because the deal is about to be far worse than what it was going to be. It was worse than what it would have been a year ago. It's worse than it would have been when Sinwar died. It's worse now. It's worse every day. Like you said, it's give us the hostage or bones.
There was a small window.
Yeah.
When Sinwar died, there was a small window where Hamas, they could have surrendered en masse and said, you know what, we're just going to take our punishment. Maybe Israel could have granted amnesty. Like, look, you're going to spend 20 years in prison, but after that, we're not gonna do anything else to you, or whatever amount of time, right? Time off if you show us where a body is. But I think that window definitely passed. But I think that Hamas has been attrited to essentially nothing now. I mean, it's funny to think of 2,000 people as nothing. But when you look at Russia, who's losing 1,600 people per day, Ukraine, like, all right, that's 1 day of fighting on the Russian front when you put things into perspective. So 2,000 people is not a lot of people.
Which then leads us to the Israeli side of it, and obviously Benjamin Netanyahu faced an uncertain future before the acts of October 7th. A lot of controversy in terms of his leadership there. Yeah. Now it feels like we are coming to the end of whatever these hostilities are. I guess, you are more of a wartime analyst in terms of the movements of stuff. You are not an expert in Israeli politics, but at least from the war perspective, what is the view of how Netanyahu prosecuted these engagements from the Israeli side?
I think it depends on where you are on the Israeli side. You could certainly make the argument that Israel didn't do enough to secure the civilians in Gaza. And I've argued that several times, that there could have been things that Israel did better when it came to making sure civilians were treated humanely and got the food and water and medical supplies they needed to live. So there's that. But there's also the flip side of the coin that comes in the sense of you can kill your way out of a problem.
Yeah.
And, that is a way to solve a problem. You can kill your way out of a problem. And I think that Israel kind of proved that if you have the will to do so, and you're willing to stand up in front of the nations of the world and be a pariah, you can kill your way out of the problem. And as crazy as this is to say, for anyone in Gaza who remains, they will most likely have a better life moving forward once Gaza is rebuilt, which will take about 15 years, than they would have if Hamas had stayed. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if that looks like Palestinian Authority rolls in. I don't know if they install a new government. I don't know. But whatever comes next will probably be better than what they had, because what they had just funneled money into building tunnels and making weapons, and the people got whatever scraps were left over.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, that pretty much is all of the real-time questions that I had about the Middle East and where we are there. I do want to ask you one last question. On the domestic side, you are somebody that I very much respect, that you are somebody that draws a line in terms of not talking about the ins and outs of American politics, but you have had very pointed things to say about the incoming appointee for the National Director of Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. Can you, from your perspective, tell the viewers and listeners what you believe her resume to be, and specifically in terms of her interactions with Assad?
So, regarding Assad, essentially Tulsi Gabbard went over to Syria, I think it was in 2017, and she said, Assad is not our enemy. And in kind of the big scheme of things, you might be able to make an argument that Assad wasn't our enemy in the sense that Assad was actively trying to destroy Americans, but you could also say that Assad was a monster.
Yes.
And, you have this geeky dude who is a freaking ophthalmologist. You know, doctors are supposed to help people. And this dude, I mean, the word acid room shouldn't even be in the... They had acid rooms.
Yeah.
That's what they call it. Here's the acid room. This is where after we kill someone, we put them in acid, in the acid room.
Yeah.
Like,
You
who
should
came
probably
up
set
with that
aside a
one?
room for that. Yeah. You should probably lay down a few tarps for the acid room.
Could you imagine being the guy that was like, oh man, I got to take care of all these bodies. Hey,
Yeah.
we could do an acid room. Like, hey, mom, and you everything okay at home?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. I was just thinking, if we had an acid room.
Just make sure you don't turn him into the Joker. As it turns out, they just
Put him in the
dissolve.
ground. Yeah, like,
Yeah.
That's how you want Syrian Joker. This is how you get Syrian Joker, right? Acid room. I'd like to see Syrian Batman though. That would be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of the main issue with Tulsi Gabbard. I believe she also said that Assad did not use chemical weapons, and not only did Assad use chemical weapons against his own people, I want to say 2016 maybe. I'm doing this off the top of my head.
Sure. Yep.
But not only did Assad use chemical weapons, Assad, the Russians actually bombed the hospital because I guess too many people survived the chemical attack and they all went to the hospital, and the Russians were like, we need to destroy the evidence of this, so they bombed the hospital. All right, you bomb the hospital, it's not going to change the fact that there was sarin gas, in someone's lungs. Like, you can figure that out, right? But maybe the Russians just needed an excuse to bomb something. I want to see what happens when we bomb a hospital.
Yeah.
Well, you okay there, Ivan? Everything okay at home?
So that
acid room.
So that meeting with Assad for Tulsi Gabbard, that is the hood ornament of the critical argument for her not being National Director of Intelligence.
The critical argument is that she has been co-opted by Russia. In the intelligence community, there's a term called mice. All right. Some people use the term rice, but mice. It means money, ideology, compromise, and ego. Mice. And some people change it to R for rice, which means reward as opposed to money. But I guess I'm old school, or I'm still using the rice model. Right.
Gotcha.
I think I'm still using the mice model. I think
the
rice
mice
was
model
used by Andrew Bustamante in his private security company. Yeah, I use the mice model. And I am in no way an intel guy like Andrew Bustamante. I do Cybint. I find bad guys, but I'm not flipping sources and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But essentially, everyone in the intelligence community knows about the mice models. Money, ideology, ego, and compromise. So for some people like Tucker Carlson, Tulsi Gabbard, you have this almost irrelevance, and then someone comes to you and says, you're important. Come on RT and tell us about your perspective.
Yeah.
And I think that Tulsi Gabbard doesn't know that she's being handled, but she's being handled, and she's being handled at the ego level. Some people just take money. It's really easy. Some people are compromised, like, like Epstein. Supposedly,
Sure.
Epstein would compromise people by putting them in these situations and then asking them to do stuff for some intelligence organization, we don't know whom. But, this person has repeated Russian propaganda. She said there were that there were bioweapons labs in Ukraine. She went on Joe Rogan and she lied that people in Hawaii were only getting $750 from the U.S. government as restitution after their houses burned down. That was not only a lie, it was on the FEMA website that said it was a lie. And she lied anyway. There's actually a lot, just her being compromised by Russia on the ego of the mice, of the mice spectrum, that's like the least of the issues. I could keep going into all of the problems with Tulsi Gabbard, but kind of the issue, I haven't really spoken about her on my channel, mainly because she's not going to pass the polygraph. So why even worry about it? It's a non-issue. This person.
So you would,
not
I mean,
going to be
again, this
Director
is
of
not
National Intelligence.
Yeah, this is not your sphere, but you do not believe that she will that she will pass muster. She will not.
You ever taken a polygraph?
I have not. No.
So they ask you questions about things you wouldn't even talk about with your wife.
Okay.
And we all know a polygraph is a bunch of BS. We all know it's not admissible in court. We all know it's pseudoscience. And you say that to yourself right up until they put you in that chair.
Yeah.
And unless you're a genuine, honest-to-God psychopath, I don't think you can pass a polygraph. And Tulsi Gabbard is not a psychopath. She's not smart enough to be. She's not. And so I have not really gotten into the whole, oh my God, Tulsi Gabbard was selected for whatever. Mainly because it doesn't matter. She's not going to get picked anyway. She's not going to pass the polygraph. They'll get someone in there who's good, and we'll move on. So the only thing it can be is clickbaity, and I don't tend to do clickbait.
All right. I'll tell you what, I will say from my side of the vantage, and obviously this is something that I do appreciate talking with you on. I'm kind of surprised that she has not gotten more organized pushback. I would have thought that both her and Kash Patel would be getting more organized pushback. As it is right now, take the prediction markets for what you will, but there certainly are a bunch of degenerates that would like to make a buck any way that they can. All three, Kash Patel, Pete Hegseth, and Tulsi Gabbard, are over 70% for what people believe is going to happen. But obviously there's a long way between now and February where we would actually start to see these hearings. And so we will see. But I would say Kash Patel 1, Tulsi Gabbard 2, and then Hegseth. I thought Hegseth probably had the best chance to get into SecDef because there's not a organized group of people that actively hate them in the way that people in the justice community hate Kash Patel, and in the intelligence community they hate Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, I think that some of the things that Pete Hegseth has said are a little, I would say, outside the mainstream. I've been doing, I've been embedded with Army units, Air Force units, Navy units. I have yet to see anyone go through woke indoctrination. So I kind of think that some of that was just his shtick, Yeah. I have a cigar, the hat. The whole woke thing is just his shtick. He might even know it's not true, but it plays well.
Yeah.
And I think someone like him will get in there, and he's going to try to do a good job.
Yeah.
Whereas Tulsi Gabbard, I don't really have a read on what kind of job she would try to do, other than maybe kind of push a world agenda that is more Russian than American. And Kash Patel, I don't really know enough about him to really discuss things. I know that his big idea is, why the hell do we have all these people working for the FBI when they don't have badges? Like, maybe the FBI should be out solving crimes instead of sitting in the Hoover building doing whatever the heck they're doing. And I can understand merit to that. There is bloat. Bloat comes to organizations where you come up with jobs. Years ago, when I first came to Washington, D.C., I worked at the NCUA, the National Credit Union Administration. And there was the head of the NCUA had to testify in front of Congress or something, and they asked him, how many minorities own a credit union in the U.S.? Mm-hmm. And the head of the NCUA didn't know that. And so they started a division inside the NCS for minority outreach. You have a director, an assistant director, a secretary, all these people in this office. There must have been 15 people in this office. And their job is to create a report every year So there's something like 500 some credit unions in the U.S., 550 at the time, I think. And their job was to call these credit unions and essentially ask, do you have a minority owner?
And then that was it.
15 people. Dude, I could have gotten an intern to do that. But how do government organizations run? Like, well, we need this because we need to establish this organization.
Yes.
So the FBI has been around since the 30s? The 20s?
Yeah.
Must have been the 20s, right? So how much bloat is now in their organization? We need lab techs. We need cybercrime specialists who are not agents and don't have badges. Sure. But, like, maybe we don't need an assistant director of outreach for agriculture in the FBI.
Yeah.
I just made that up.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, you kind of get the idea.
Well, I'll tell you what, we will watch all of this, and we are better for it now that we have been enriched by the one and only Ryan McBeth. Please find his YouTube. Please find his Substack. I will tell you this. There are few voices that I immediately click on when he makes a video like I do for Ryan. So thank you so much for doing that and for taking all the time to speak with this audience. I greatly appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much, Justin.
And that'll wrap it up for us today. Politics, Politics, Politics. Brought to you, as always, by your boy, Justin Robert Young. Recorded in Austin, Texas for Dog and Pony Show Audio. If you want to email me, and look, I'm on the hunt for DeButts. I'm on the hunt for Hunter. I need DeButts. Send me an email, theyoungamerican@gmail.com. You can find, follow, and share video clips of the show, Justin R. Young, on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, YouTube. Love our YouTube audience. politicspolitics.com. You can support us with a one-time donation, paypal.me/payjury, PAYJURY. If I deserve a little Christmas bonus, throw me a little lettuce in the old stocking. Venmo is Justin-Young-20. Venmo money isn't real. That's just a fact. Cash App is PX3 Cash, and you can send me anything you'd like in the mail. Post Office Box 153184, Austin, Texas 78715. Again, that is P.O. Box 153184, Austin, Texas 78715. Of course, you can always get our bonus content at TakePoliticsSeriously.com. Paying members get 2 bonus episodes a week, either $3 per week, that's $12 billed monthly, or $99 one-time price for the entire year. Over 150 episodes of PX30 for under $100. And our founding tier gets your name read at the end of the podcast, like these fine folks in the founding Titanic $10 tier. L3PO, Peepaw, Scott, Middle-Aged Mike, Tom, Sarah Jeannie, Jeremy, Pro Idiot, Chiller Tomatoes. Oh yeah, it's Adam, Neil, AB Puppy, Just Another Pilot, Dr. Whiskey, Michael, Fat Tony's PJs from New York, Will, The Borge Bee, Matthew, Matt, Andrew, Edwin, Sam, Andrew, Phil, Edison, Devon, Paul, A Dog Named Checkers, Gloria Young, my sweet and wise mother, Jerry, Trucker, John, Berkeley Steven, and Zombie Doc. You want your name read on the show, only one place to do it, that founding tier. I'll tell you what, if somebody buys a gift founding tier for somebody, I don't even know if you can do that, but go check that out. Ooh, we actually have an email here from Substack. Oh, never mind. It's just I'm working on it. All right. On Friday's edition of the show, we welcome back somebody who hasn't been on the show for years. Back then, they were with CNN. Now, they are someone who's a little bit more palatable to me. A member of the feral internet. Oh, you love to see it. The one, the only, Chris Aliza, back on the show on Friday. But, till then, this is your old pal, Justin Robert Young, saying some shows talk about politics, others talk about politics, and still more discuss politics. But this is the only show that dares discuss all 3.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Dog and Pony Show audio.